Hi guys, my name is Lacey of Spooky List and Fat Hips, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. There is fuzzies flying all over the place. Why do I always have fuzzies in all my videos? I'm wearing like a plastic dress. Where are fuzzies even coming from? So I feel like I have been talking a lot about shopping lately, and not in like the, hey, let's do less of it way, in like the fully indulgent, maybe need to calm down kind of way. And I want to always have a balance on this channel of like buying the things that bring you joy and that you're interested in, that inspire you and make you feel creative and beautiful, but also not falling for the hype of products that really you don't need or you're gonna get and be disappointed with, etc. That was kind of the point of my cycle of makeup addiction and declutter video, which I will try to throw a card up here if I remember to do so. My point at the end of that video was, I think that I've found the balance between buying makeup and not needing every new release, and I think that's the goal. I personally am not a minimalist. I'm personally, I have a big collection. I like my collection. It brings me a lot of happiness and joy. Makeup is my happy place. I love creating new things and experimenting and blah, blah, blah. Everyone's different, and I've said in the past how a lot of people watch my channel because I know they want tips as to how to break makeup addiction, because it's a very real thing. And actually, LS did a video about consumers taking their share of the blame on makeup addiction, and it's very good. I'm going to link it down below because she said a lot of things I agree with in that video. But anyway, where am I getting to with this? So I just talked a lot about things that I bought and want to buy and things like that, and I've hauled so much makeup recently that I really need to calm down, and I'm talking about subscribing possibly to BoxyCharm, and I want to balance that. That's my whole point. So today I'm going to be talking to you guys about makeup gimmicks to avoid when making purchases. And what I mean by this is, well, first off, what's a gimmick? Let's Google the word gimmick, shall we? Gimmick, a trick or device intended to attract attention, publicity, or business, which is exactly what I'm referring to in this video. And I think we hear the word gimmick thrown around a lot when it comes to makeup reviews and will I buy it videos and anti-hauls and things like that. And really, what I'm specifically referring to, and what I think most people are referring to when they talk about like avoiding gimmicks in makeup, is maybe the product itself isn't that great, but something else about it has drawn you into it and you're now spending your money on it, regardless of maybe whether you're going to get use out of it or if you really needed it, or if you already have a million things like that in your collection. It's something that, it's a way for makeup companies to get your money besides maybe having a product that appeals to you in some way. It's something beyond the product itself that is calling you in. So I have in my magical list of YouTube ideas things that I've written down that I'm considering gimmicks that I feel you should avoid if you're trying to make smarter shopping decisions. The first thing that I thought of immediately when making this list was special/limited edition packaging for products that already exist. And the product specifically that came to my mind when thinking about this was the Becca Champagne Pop Skin Perfector that came in like the special gold packaging with like a champagne bottle embossed into the powder itself. So Champagne Pop obviously is a pre-existing established Becca highlighter. A lot of Becca lovers already own it. A lot of highlighter lovers already own it. I personally just got my hands on it. So you didn't want it before, but now it's come out in this pretty new packaging. So you're going to get it? Like, that's fully a gimmick. It's something that already existed and now you're buying it. Maybe you never wanted it in the first place. On the contrary, if you always kind of wanted it, but maybe like never wanted to just go for it, and you saw the package and you're like, yeah, worth it, cool. But if you had no interest in it to begin with, don't buy it. Another thing that I'm thinking of is those Glam Glow Gravity Mud Masks that are constantly being re-released in new collabs with different things. It's the same product. You didn't own it already. Like, you don't need it because it comes in the special packaging. Like I said, the only exception to that rule is if you already really wanted it and now it's just like extra incentive maybe to do it. But if you had no interest anyway, or if you already own it, don't re-buy it because it has a special packaging. Just don't. Oh my gosh, stop doing that. I don't know if people do that, but I hope that you don't. Kind of piggybacking off that, though, because I brought up the Glam Glow mask. Another gimmick that I would say to avoid is collabs that don't seem to make any sense. And what I mean by this is, I've said in my Kat Von D Divine palette that to me was a collab that made sense, that I felt like if Divine was alive, that she would approve of that given Kat Von D's clientele and her artistry team, it makes a lot of sense for her to work with the, legacy of a famous drag queen. Like, that made sense to me. I also mentioned with Sugar Pill and them kind of being very colorful and cutesy that their Sanrio collab made sense. But I'm talking about, like, the artistic integrity of one thing not matching up with the business ethics of another thing. Like, something that comes to my mind again for this was, like, the Urban Decay Basquiat collection. I don't know if Basquiat would have been down with that collab, knowing what I know about Basquiat, having studied art history and studying him. I don't think he would have been down with that collab. Another kind of, just broad topic thing in general that comes to mind is, like, anytime Disney collabs with a big makeup brand, that doesn't seem to make a lot of sense to me. Minus maybe the Snow White Besame collab, because Besame does, I don't want to say old, but, like, is inspired by vintage and is inspired by, like, makeup trends of the past. So them collabing with Snow White, which is the first Disney animated film that came out in, like, the 1940s, I believe. Like, that made total sense to me, appropriate. But, even, again, sorry to drag Urban Decay one more time, but them collabing with Alice in Wonderland, would Lewis Carroll be down with that? I don't know. I just sometimes, I don't know, collabs don't make a lot of sense. And again, if it's a brand that you're not even a fan of to begin with, but you're a fan of, like, the thing they're collabing with or the institution they're collabing with, don't do it. Like, I know MAC collabs with a lot of shit. I don't own anything from MAC. I don't buy MAC, but they've done everything from, like, the Osbournes to the Simpsons, and lately they're doing, like, makeup artists. The makeup artist part makes sense. Or even when brands collab with, like, beauty influencers. That makes sense. But some things, like Sephora Barbie collab that is coming out soon, I don't know. I don't know. Or, like, people who are probably not using those products collabing with a brand, like the Gigi Hadid, I think it was Maybelline fiasco. I don't think she was even using those products. Like, some collabs just don't make sense. Don't fall for it. Don't fall for the pretty packaging, the pretty collab. Just stop it. The next thing on my list of gimmicks to avoid is the all-in-one collections of various products. So, I know recently Kat Von D just released, like, this super exclusive, like, limit of, like, 5 Kat Von D Study Kiss lipsticks in a special holder that came with all the lipsticks, and it was, like, upwards of $700. I know these kinds of collections are very popular during the holidays. I think last year Becca did one where it was, like, all full sizes of their Skin Perfectors. These don't make a lot of sense to me because, one, if you already own Skin Perfectors, why are you going to buy the big collection and then just have repeats in your collection? 2, the money you're saving doesn't tend to be enough to justify how ridiculous the overall cost is anyway. Because even if you like a lipstick, yeah, maybe you'll accumulate a lot of that collection over time. But like I said, if you already didn't own it, why would you buy it all in one shot? And it just seems like a big old waste of money. Especially to that, like, that level of product. You're not going to like every shade. You're not going to get use out of every shade. At least one of those items is probably going to be a waste. And that therefore lowers the overall value for the cost that you're paying. So, definitely, I think it's better if you're interested in, let's say, Study Kiss lipsticks, pick up 1, pick up 2, 3 maybe, try them before you maybe accumulate the entire collection all at once. But yeah, those whole all-in-one bundles, like I said, you see them a lot during the holidays. I would avoid, personally. You didn't own it anyway, probably for a reason. Kind of sticking to the theme of, like, all-in-one, this is on a smaller scale. But I would avoid products that are, like, all-in-one skin tone face palettes. And I don't know if you would necessarily consider this a gimmick or not, but I will explain my logic for this. I'm talking about when you have a contour palette that has fair to deep shades within it. While I think that's amazing to be all-inclusive, unless you are a working makeup artist, only one side of that is going to end up working for you, and now the rest of a product is the waste. So I feel like companies will advertise these, specifically I'm talking about, I guess, face palettes, and be like, we got you all covered, but it's such a waste of money because you're only going to use a fraction of it. Like I said, unless you're a working makeup artist. And I think companies are getting hip to that and are starting to release more like multiple face palettes and collections and like trios as opposed to like huge palettes and things like that. But just, I think it's a gimmick. I think also like creating makeup that appeals to makeup artists has become a gimmick in recent makeup times, where it's products that the average consumer doesn't need or wouldn't need is now being marketed to them. Like pro makeup is very heavily being marketed lately to the average consumer. I don't know if that's good or bad, but I do think it's a little bit of a gimmick. Speaking of things that weren't originally meant for the average consumer that are now being presented to the average consumer, another gimmick to avoid, in my opinion, even though I do think they're cool sometimes, is PR packages. More and more recently, companies are releasing entire collections all in one swoop in like one convenient bundle that you can get for one big price. So those same really pretty packages that you see all your favorite influencers opening on their Snapchats and Instagram stories, you now can own yourself for a couple $100. I'm thinking of ColourPop and Kylie Cosmetics with this, but I know other brands have started to do it too, where you can buy like a whole collection of everything with maybe like a special makeup bag or a special case or a special box, whatever. And it's just such a waste of money. I know that you want to, and I'm guilty of this, you want to own it all and you want to feel special when you open it and have the thing, and like, unless you were going to buy all of those items specifically anyway, like unless you were looking at a collection and you knew that you wanted every single piece of that collection, then you might as well go for the PR package style bundle and get the fancy box or bag that it comes in. But if you're even in your mind excluding some parts of it as I'm not going to use that, totally skip it. You're not as an influencer. I'm sorry, but it's okay. It's okay that we're not beauty gurus. It's fine. we all don't need to be beauty gurus. Again, I don't know if I necessarily would consider this a gimmick, but maybe I would consider this a gimmick. Huge packaging. Huge, bulky, ridiculous packaging. And I'm thinking of like, I'm picking on Urban Decay a lot in this, but they're Alice in Wonderland when you open it and it was a butterfly. You don't need something that extreme. Also, I used to love like Morphe palettes, like 35 shadow palettes. That I'm even thinking is starting to be a little bit of a gimmick because you don't need all those shadows. And I think the idea of like having everything you need and all in one is very appealing, but realistically you don't. Those big like palettes and things like that, big bulky stuff, conspiracy theory, I feel like brands do it on purpose, because then you can't buy other makeup, because it's so hard to store, and it takes up so much space, that you therefore can't buy any new things, because it's not going to fit in the drawer. You know, you end up decluttering all those big palettes anyway. Like, it's such a gimmick to have the big, ridiculous, lavish packaging. I have found myself loving sleek, slim packaging so much more lately than the big, bulky, kind of collab-esque things of the past, just because it's too much of a hassle, and I get that the pretty packaging draws you in, and maybe it doesn't even have to be bulky, but even like the ColourPop newest spring collection that came out, a lot of people were like, I'm going to buy that because of the packaging. Just packaging in general. Don't let it gimmick you into buying it. Is gimmick a verb? It is now. Don't let it be a gimmick to you. Don't fall for it. Just because you like the packaging doesn't mean you're going to like the product inside. If you do, added bonus, because now you have a thing you like in a pretty packaging. But don't buy things because of the packaging, and especially don't buy it because the packaging is like super extra. It's just a waste of your money and your space, and you're paying for that fancy packaging more so than you are for the product. And then my honorable mention, because I do think this thing can be good or bad. My last gimmick that I'm going to say to avoid to make smarter shopping decisions is going to be like bundles. And it doesn't have to be like the huge all-in-one collection type bundles that I referenced earlier in this video, but even like if it's a lip bundle of like 5 lip colors and you don't like 1 or 2 of them, not worth it. But on the other hand, if you did like all those colors, it's just going to save you money to buy the bundle. then go for it. So that's kind of why it's like an honorable mention, because I feel like bundles can get you. Also, with bundles though, I want to talk about like Gotta Have It All-esque collections, where it's like, let's use the Naked collection as an example, Urban Decay, sorry, I'm picking on you one more time. We can even use Too Faced in the Chocolate Bar collection. Be careful when you buy from collections, because that's where it leads to like completionist attitudes where you're like, well, I have 2 from this collection, so now I want all of from that collection. So that's why they're honorable mentions, because they can be gimmicky, but they can also be good depending. And yeah, that's it. That is my list of gimmicks that I think you should try to avoid when shopping for makeup. What do you think about this list? Do you think the things I mentioned are gimmicks? Do you like any of the things I mentioned? Are there any gimmicks that you feel like you try to avoid when you're shopping for makeup? Let's talk about it down below. If you want more videos talking about ways that we can shop smarter, let me know. Thumbs this up. Talk to me always. And yeah, that's all I got. And I will see you in my next video. Bye guys!